Okay, so let's start our discussion. Okay, so right now we are in our week 4. So we have two topics for this week. So two literary pieces. First is The Freedom from Want by Carlos Bulosan. That is an essay. And the next is Bonsai, which is written by Edith Tiempo. So Bonsai is a poem, okay? So bonsai, that is a type of poetry na tinatawag natin sonnet. Okay? So always remember that na yung bonsai is a sonnet, which is a poetry that talks about love. Okay? Okay, so let's first discuss the essay by Carlos Bulosan entitled Freedom from Want. So before we discuss yung essay, let us first look for the background of Carlos Bulosan. Okay, so if you can see, this is the picture of Carlos Bulosan. Yan. So Carlos Bulosan was born in the Philippines on November 24, 1913. So imagine 1913, almost 100 years ago. So he was born in the Philippines in the rural farming village of Mangosmana near the town of Binalonan, Pangasinan Province, Luzon Island. Okay, so he was the son of a farmer and spent most of his upbringing in the countryside with his family. Like many families in the Philippines, Carlos' family struggled to survive during times of economic hardship. Many families were impoverished and many more would suffer because of the conditions in the Philippines created by US colonization. So rural farming families like Carlos' family experienced severe economic disparity due to the growing concentration of wealth and power in the hands of the economic and political elite. So that time, nung kabataan ni Carlos Bulosan, while he was staying in the Philippines, that is the time or the era where the Philippines is being colonized by Americans or the US. So that time, they are experiencing disparity. So what do we mean by disparity? Who have an idea sa meaning ng disparity? Sabi dito, they experience severe economic disparity. So what do you think is the meaning of the word disparity? Who can answer? Yes? Anyone? Do you want me to call? Okay, let's call. Sino ba? You can look on your dictionaries. Okay, may I have Wilben Echo. Dito ba si Wilben? Can I hear your voice, Wilben?
Po, ma'am.
Yes. What do we mean by the word disparity?
Disparity. Ano, ma'am?
Yes, disparity. Those who can answer can have an additional 5 points on the activity that I will upload later. Disparity.
Difference po.
Difference in country.
Sino yung unang sumagot?
Ako po, ma'am.
Hotdog!
What's your name, dear?
Paladan po.
What's your surname?
Paladan po.
Palasan? Okay.
Paladan po,
Okay.
Paladan.
Paladan. Okay, okay. So, again, what is the meaning of disparity?
Region and country.
Great
Great
difference.
difference po.
Great difference po.
Difference of country po.
Different country.
Okay, so great difference. So from the word,
Difference region of country.
okay, so that time, according to our lecture, so Carlos Bulosan and his family experienced severe economic disparity. So that time, the economy of the Philippines have changed. So from a wealthy economy, it changed from a very challenged economy because of the U.S. colonization. So that time, they experience impoverished. So another word to learn is impoverish. What do we mean by the word impoverish? Okay, may I call on um nandito ba si Garcia Joaquin? Garcia? Wala? Wala ba si Garcia? Okay, let me call um Jessa Ramirez.
Discourage ano po? Discourage investment.
Impoverish is discourage investment, or in simple words, poor. Okay? So,
Poor, made for.
yes. So, other words for impoverish are poor. So, that time, maraming family, nung panahon na nandito si Carlos Bulasan in the Philippines, a lot of families are poor. So, that's why for the last part of this slide, sabi dito that Carlos Bulosan became determined to help and support his family and further his education. Carlos decided to come to America with the dream to fulfill these goals. Okay, so this time, Carlos Bulosan decided to migrate to America alone because life in the Philippines was hard. A lot of families were struggling because of poverty. So he decided to fulfill his dreams in America. Okay, so pumunta si Carlos Bulosan in Seattle in US noong July 22, 1930 at the age of 17. So he traveled by ship. Okay, so imagine if you are on the shoes of Carlos Bulosan, you are a 17-year-old boy and you traveled alone from the Philippines to America by ship. Okay, yung transportation niya is on waters, not on land, not on air. So, these days, if you will travel from the Philippines to America, you will spend 15 hours, 15 to 16 hours if you will travel by plane. So imagine if you will be traveling by so waters by ship. So imagine it will take a couple of days to a week. So that time, hindi pa naman ganun ka-modernize ang transportation. So imagine kung gaano siya katagal nag-travel. Okay, so at the age of 17, with only 3 years of education from the Philippines, Carlos spoke little English and had barely any money left. So imagine if you will be traveling to another country without knowing the language. So So, paano ka makikipag-communicate? How can you understand what's happening around you in a foreign country? So, imagine the struggle Carlos Bulosan have experienced that time in America. So, Carlos Bulosan was desperate to survive that time, so he soon began working various low-paying jobs like servicing in a hotel, harvesting in the fields, and even embarking to the Alaskan canneries. So, itong irang to nung pumunta si Carlos Bulosan in America, this is the era where Americans are not really that accepting other races in America. So, that time, laganap ang discrimination in America. So, if you will watch movies ng mga Black Americans being slaves from white Americans, ito din yung era kung saan pumunta si Carlos Bulosan sa America. So, at first, itong season na to or itong era na to, Americans were not really that accepting other races. Dinidiscriminate nila yung other races, they are just supporting their own. Mga puti lang or mga white Americans lang ang mayayaman that time, and other races like Filipinos that time are just working on low-paying jobs in America. So, during his hardships in finding employment, Carlos experienced much economic difficulty and racial brutality that significantly damaged his health and eventually changed his perception of America. So, almost all of us, we think that America is a good country for us to be successful. So we always dream to come and travel in America. So that is the same with Carlos Bulosan before he traveled from Philippines to America. But the moment that he saw what's what's coming for him in America, kung ano ba yung madadatnan niya sa, kung ano yung nadatnan niya sa Amerika, he changed his perception about America. So when he was working in America, he experienced a lot of struggle. So kasama na dyan yung economic difficulty and racial brutality, so discrimination, and that resulted in a significant damage on his health. So that time, nung nagtatrabaho na siya, he experienced a lot of things, a lot of hard things. Nagkasakit siya. So, from several years of racist attacks, starvation, and sickness, Carlos underwent surgery for tuberculosis in Los Angeles. So, imagine you are alone in America and then nagkasakit ka. Carlos Bulosan had a tuberculosis, which is a disease sa lungs that time. So imagine you are alone, you are sick in America. So his health condition with tuberculosis forced him to undergo 3 operations where he lost most of the right side of his ribs and the function of one lung. So yet he recovered and stayed in the hospital for about 2 years, where he spent much of his time reading and writing. So for 2 years, Carlos Bulosan stayed on a hospital, and that is where he started writing and reading. So according to Isan Juan Jr., noong 1999, so of the million Filipinos who found themselves in the United States in the 2 decades before and after World War II, Carlos Bulosan, his entire life and works represents the heroic struggles and sacrifices of the Filipino community as a colonized and emergent national agency in world history. So yung na-experience si Carlos Bulosan, that is a reflection or a mirror kung ano ba yung nararanasan ng mga Filipinos that time in America and in other countries. So, The discrimination and unhealthy working conditions Carlos had experienced in many of his workplaces encouraged him to participate in union organizing with other Filipinos and various workers. So Carlos became a self-educated and prolific writer, determined to voice the struggles he had undergone as a Filipino coming to America and the struggles he had witnessed of other people. So, yung Freedom from Want, that essay is inspired by the struggles of Filipino in America. So, like many of his fellow Filipinos in his time, Carlos never had the opportunity to return to the Philippines. So that is the sad part of Carlos Bulosan's story. Hindi siya nakabalik sa Philippines, sa family niya in the Philippines. After years of hardship and flight, he passed away in Seattle suffering from an advanced stage of bronchopneumonia. He is buried at Queen Anne Hill in Seattle. So he was unable to go home to his family in the Philippines. He died alone with a lung disease in America. So that is the sad part for Carlos Bulosan. But what Carlos Bulasan's story is very inspiring because he only had 3 years of education in the Philippines. Hindi siya nakapag-aral in the US. Yet, he was able to voice out the struggles of Filipinos in America. So that is through his writings. So sabi nga nila, um, words are mightier than a sword. So um, Carlos Bulosan have used this tool, the writing, to voice out their situations in America. So, freedom from want. So, these are facts about freedom from want. So, yung freedom from want, it was written in the year 1943. So, freedom from want wants to promote nationalism to the Filipino people. So nationalism, ibig sabihin, you patronize your own products, you support your own country, all the programs of the government. That is what we call nationalism. You support your own. So the essay is fighting for the freedom of all the citizens of the country to do what they want to do in life. So um, sorry for the question mark. Period dapat yan. Okay. So other information about freedom from want. Yung freedom from want kasi, it came from a speech of United States President, which is what do you call this? Si Franklin Roosevelt. So, si Franklin Roosevelt is a US President. And noong 1941, he gave State of the Union address in the US. So, dun sa speech niya, so kung sa atin ay SONA or State of the Nation address, sa US naman ang tawag sa kanila is State of the Union address. So, during the State of the Union address speech of Franklin Roosevelt noong 1941, meron siyang 4 na freedom na binanggit sa kanyang speech. First is the freedom from fear. Second is the freedom from want. Third is the freedom of worship. And then fourth is the freedom of speech. So, dun sa 4 na yon, doon nakuha ni Carlos Bulosan yung idea to write about the freedom from want. Okay? So, yung idea na nakuha niya from the speech of Franklin Roosevelt noong 1941 sa State of the Union address ni Franklin Roosevelt. So considered na galing sa Region 1, Ilocos Region, yung freedom from want, since galing sa Region 1 si Carlos Bulasan, or he originated from that region. So, So, later, I will discuss to you kung ano ba yung nilalaman ng freedom from want. But let's move on first sa next literary piece natin, which is Bonsai. Bonsai, again, is a, a poem, and its poetry type is sonnet, which is a poetry that talks about love. Okay, so Bonsai is the author of Bonsai is Edith Tiempo. Okay, so si Edith Tiempo, she was born on April 22, 1919, and she died no August 21, 2011. Okay, so si Edith Tiempo was a poet, a fiction writer, a teacher, and and literary critic was and a Philippine writer in the English language. Okay, so Tiempo was born in Bayombong, Nueva Vizcaya. So yung Bayombong, Nueva Vizcaya, that is in Region 2, Cagayan Valley. Okay, so her poems are intricate verbal transfigurations of significant experiences as revealed in two of her much anthologized pieces, yung Lament for the Litless Fellow and yung Bonsai, which i-interpret natin later on. Okay? So, as fictionist, Tiempo is as morally profound. Her language has been marked as descriptive but unburdened by scrupulous detailing. Okay, so sabi, um, yung way of writing ni Edith Tiempo is descriptive, pero not really, she doesn't use or she didn't use unburdened scrupulous detailing. So, hindi siya masyadong gumagamit ng highfalutin words for detailing. So, she is an influential tradition in Philippine literature in English. So, together with her late husband, writer and critic Edilberto K. Tiempo, they founded and directed the Siliman National Writers Workshop in Dumaguete City, which has produced some of the Philippines' best writers. She was conferred as the National Artist for Literature in 1999. So in 1999, she received an award, which is yung National Artist Award for Literature. So, okay. Furthermore, Edith Tiempo was born on April 22 in San Nicolas, Boyombong, Nueva Vizcaya. So this is just specific place. So her parents are Salvador T. Lopez, an auditor for the government, and Teresa Cotaran. During her childhood, Tiempo's family frequently had to move from one province to another because of her father's different assignments and postings. So, according to this, yung pamumuhay ni Edith Tiempo, nung siya ay bata pa, she needs to travel, she needs to change her location most of the time because of her father's job. So she went to high school in Bayongbong and then went to take pre-law at the University of the Philippines. In 1947, she would graduate magna cum laude from Silliman University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Education, majoring in English. Okay, so her graduate studies led her to the State University of Iowa. So that is a foreign university, so sa ibang bansa. So from which she gained an international fellowship which lasted from 1947 to 1950. She also took part in the State University of Iowa's Creative Writing Workshop, which was headed by veritable American poet Paul Engel. Okay, so she received a scholarship grant from the notable United Board of Christian Higher Education in Asia and attained a doctorate degree in English from the University of Denver, Colorado in 1958. So, Okay, so this is a lot of background for Edith Tiempo. So, i-wrap up na lang natin. So, gifted in the use of the English language, Edith Tiempo is proclaimed as one of the Philippines' foremost writers in English alongside other seminal writers like Jose Garcia Villa. Her poetry is hailed for its witty and complex wordplay. So this characteristic is most evident in two of her most famous poems, like yung Bonsai and The Little Marmoset. So, literary scholars often refer to either of these poems in their studies of Tiempo's work. So, if you will be seeing other literary courses, so most of the time, yung poems ni Edith Tiempo was being used to be interpreted and to be analyzed. So, ginagamit yung mga poems ni Edith Tiempo because of her witty and complex wordplay. So, Edith Tiempo is really recognized as a writer here in the Philippines. Okay, so let's move on to Bonsai. So, ano ba yung Bonsai na poem? So, Bonsai is a poem or a literary piece that originated from the Philippines, Region 2, Cagayan Valley. Since si Edith Tiempo came from the Region 2, Cagayan Valley. So, yung Cagayan Valley, a brief background, officially designated as Region 2, it is an administrative region in the Philippines occupying the northeastern section of Luzon. It covers 5 provinces, namely Batanes, Cagayan, Isabela, Nueva Vizcaya, and Quirino. So again, si Edith Tiempo came from Nueva Vizcaya. So the regional center of this region is the city of Tuguegarao. Okay, so now we will move on to so we will now move on to our first literary piece. So i-interpret na natin yung first literary piece natin, which is yung um, Freedom from Want. Okay? So, wait lang. Okay, can you see my presentation now, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Opo.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first, ang una nating i-interpret, which is yung Freedom from Want. So, ito yung sinulat ni Carlos Bulosan. Okay? Ito yung una nating discuss. So, Freedom from Want is an essay. So, it is published in the Saturday Evening Post magazine noong March 6, 1943 as one of the commissioned essay on the four freedoms in America. Again, yung four freedoms in America, it is mentioned in the speech of President Franklin Roosevelt noong State of the Union address niya noong 1941. Okay, so again, yung four freedoms in America is freedom from fear, freedom from want, freedom of worship, and then the freedom of speech. So, okay, let's move on now to the essay itself. Okay, so first part, if you want to know what we are, look upon the forms or upon the hard pavements of the city. You usually see us working or waiting for work, and you think you know us, but our outward guise is more deceptive than our history. Okay, so this is the first part. So this is medyo madali naman siyang maintindihan. So can I call on can I call somebody to interpret this paragraph, the first paragraph? Volunteer? Do we have any volunteer?
Ma'am,
Yes. What's your name, dear?
Padilla po.
Okay. So, based on your own interpretation, ano ba yung ibig sabihin ni Carlos Bulosan on this first paragraph? Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, any other volunteer? Sino pang gusto sumagot? Okay, so nawala na siya. Okay, so let me call Linus. Do we have Linus? Present ba si Linus today? Okay, I think Linus is not here. Okay, let me call okay. Uh Molly Gaza. Do we have Molly Gaza submitting? Okay, let me. Okay, I think Gaza is not here. So let me call Olivar, Sally Ann Olivar. I want to hear your voices, students.
Wait lang.
Okay, so you're still reading? Okay lang. So I want to hear your voices, students. Okay, so take your time. So let me call Tullier, John Lloyd Tullier.
Wait lang po.
Okay, so everybody's having a hard time. Okay, so ako muna magsasalita. Okay. So on the first paragraph, so if you want to know what we are, look upon the forms or upon the hard pavements of the city. So according to Carlos Bulasan on his essay, if you want to know a country or the people in a certain country, look upon the forms. Tumingin kayo sa mga forms or the pavements of the city. So, you usually see us working or waiting for work and you think you know us, but our outward guise is more deceptive than our history. So if you will look on the facade or yung outer appearance ng isang place or ng mga tao, it is more deceptive or you cannot see the true condition ng mga tao in a country if you will just look on the outer part of it. So sabi dito ni Carlos Bulosan, it can be more deceptive. So but our outward guise is more deceptive than our history. So if you want to look on a condition of a certain country, look on its pavements in the city or on its farm. So next, our history has many strands of fear and hope that snarl and converge at several points in time and space. We clear the forests and the mountains of the land. We cross the river and the wind. We harness wild beasts and living still. We celebrate labor, wisdom, peace of the soul. So, when our crops are burdened or plowed under, we are angry and confused. Sometimes we ask if this is the real America. Sometimes we watch our long shadows and doubt the future. But we have learned to emulate our ideals from these trials. We know there were men who came and stayed to build America. So we know they came because there is something in America that they needed and which needed them. So from this two paragraphs, what is your interpretation? Wala tayong wrong answers. I just want to hear your voice, students. Let me see if you really can understand yung yung point ng essay. I just want to see how you understand this essay. I just want to hear your voices. Okay, let me call Jessa Ramirez. Jessa Ramirez. Mhm. Are you here? Oh, I can see your name, but okay. Okay, let me call Averila. April Joy Averila.
Good afternoon po, ma'am. Ano po, based from first paragraph po up to third paragraph, ma'am, ano po, ang interpretation ko is, kapag, like for example, pumunta ka sa isang country, so parang hindi mo dapat sila i-judge lahat kung ano yung nakikita mo doon, or like, kunwari, kung ano yung trabaho ng mga tao mo doon, hindi mo sila basta i-judge kasi, ma'am, from history nila, kapag madami silang ginawa or naghirap sila or something like mas malalim pa na experiences nila. Tapos, wait lang.
It's okay. You're doing great.
Kumbaga po, ma'am, parang yung feelings sila is napakalalim pa. Kasi pag, kunwari, pumunta tayo sa isang bansa, parang i-judge natin kasi sila agad na parang, ay, gato, ganyan yan sila. Pero dapat, we think deeper kung ano mga experiences na experiences nila, ma'am. Oh my gosh, yun lang po.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Averila. That is a good interpretation. So, yes, you are right. If you will look on something, on a meaning of a certain thing, you will not just look on the facade or yung outer surface because there is something deeper on a certain thing. Okay? So, if you can observe, yung way of writing ni Carlos Bulosan is in third person. Okay? So, hindi niya ginagamit yung mga pronouns na I, etc. Okay. So, he is not writing na hindi niya pinapakita na this is his experience. Pero it is obviously his experience. He is using third person. He is using the voice of yung what do you call this? Yung point of view ng ibang tao, pero this is exactly what he experienced in America. So on the last part of the third paragraph, sabi dito, we know they came because there is something in America that they needed and which needed them. Okay? So, as we all know, there are Filipinos who migrated in America because they want to fulfill something in their life. They want to be successful and they think that they can have that fulfillment and success in America. But then that country also needed them. Okay? So, yung way of writing ni Carlos Bulosan, it is not just his experience. It is the experience of almost all of the Filipinos in America that time. Okay? So, this is just a reflection. So, on the fourth paragraph, so we march on through sometimes strange moods fill our children, our march toward security and peace is the march of freedom. The freedom that we should like to become a living part of. It is the dignity of the individual to live in a society of free men, where the spirit of understanding and belief exists, of understanding that all men, whatever their color, race, religion, or state, should be given equal opportunity to serve themselves and each other according to their needs and abilities. So, on this fourth paragraph, what can you say about it? So, ano ba yung sinasabi ng fourth paragraph? Volunteer? Any volunteer? Okay, so let me call Reyes, John Carlo Reyes. I can see your name from here.
Ma'am, binabasa ko lang po.
Okay, okay, so let me call Hazel Manalo. Hazel. Okay, I think hindi. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let me call Joaquin Garcia. Yes, Mr. Garcia. What is your own interpretation on this part of the essay? No wrong answer, students. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as we all know, doon sa background ni Carlos Bulosan, sabi doon, Carlos Bulosan experienced difficulty in America. So meron doon brutality, discrimination, etc. So, okay, sorry. Okay, so on this part, so sabi niya, our march towards security and peace is the march of freedom. The freedom that we should like to become a living part of. It is the dignity of the individual to live in a society of free men where the spirit of understanding and belief exists. Of understanding that all men, whatever their color, race, religion, or and abilities. So they are. So Carlos Bulasan wants to promote on this part yung equality, regardless of the race, religion, or color. They want to have freedom sa kung ano ba yung paniniwalaan nila, freedom, equality, on opportunities, because that time they don't have that. They didn't have them rather. So that time they are having difficulties on having a decent job, a high-paying job, because Americans that time are very discriminating. So ito yung era, or ito yung panahon na Americans are not really that accepting sa ibang lahi. So it is really hard that time to migrate in America because of their beliefs. Okay, so next. But we are not really free unless we use what we produce. So long as the fruit of our labor is denied to us, so long will want manifest itself in a world of slaves. It is only when we have plenty to eat, plenty of everything, that we begin to understand what freedom means. To us, freedom is not an intangible thing. When we have enough to eat, then we are healthy enough to enjoy what we eat. Then we have the time and ability to read and think and discuss things. Then we are not merely living but also becoming a creative part of life. It is only then that we become a growing part of democracy. Okay, so this part I want to give it to you. I want to hear your voices. Again, students, there is no wrong answers. It is just your interpretation that I want to hear, okay? So I will try to call again. So let me see, or let me hear the voice of Borromeo, John Lloyd Borromeo. Mm-hmm. John Lloyd Borromeo. Students, you don't have to be scared sa pagsagot, okay? So, wala naman maling sagot every time I will call you. I just want to hear your voice. I just want to know if you are really focusing on our discussion. Okay, so let me have again Sally and Oliver. Mm-hmm. Miss Oliver, are you here? I can see your name from the list ng mga nasa meeting, but I cannot hear your voice. Okay, Ratak. Trisha Ratak.
Ma'am, binabasa ko pa po, maingay po kasi dito.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can I have a volunteer, please? Okay, I will give it to myself. Okay, so that time, Filipinos and other races are being slaves of Americans rather. So they are working, they are producing products, pero they don't have the access to it. So for example, they are in a farm, they are planting this their rice and everything. Sila yung nagpapalago, sila yung bumubuhay pero they don't have access to it. Once they harvest, it will be sold out in the city. Imagine you are the one who planted the fruit or the plant. Then hindi mo siya makakain if it is edible. So that is the situation of Filipinos and other races that time in America. They are the one who work, they are the one who produce the product, but they don't have the access to it. Okay? So for example, they are the one who produce the clothing. Pero yun, that clothing will be sold out in a shop. And then ang bibili nun, those who are able to buy or who has the money to buy the clothing. So that is what we call denial of access to your freedom from wants. Okay, so if you want food, you can't have the food that time, even though you want to. If you want the clothing, you can have it. It's because you are not an American. So that is the situation of Filipinos that time. Okay, so according to Carlos Bulusan, if they will have the chance to enjoy everything like the food in their table, so if they will enjoy that, they can be healthy enough So if they are healthy, they will be having the ability to read and think, so they can discuss things with other people. So on that part, they can contribute something to the country, and that is what we call democracy. Okay? So that is what Carlos Bulosan is promoting on this essay. Freedom. Freedom of access to your wants and to your needs. Okay, so next, we do not take democracy for granted. We feel it grow in our working together. Many millions of us working toward the common purpose. If it took us several decades of sacrifice to arrive at this fate, it is because it took us that long to know what part of America is ours. Our faith has been shaken many times, and now it is put to question. Our faith is a living thing, and it can be crippled and chained. It can be killed by denying us enough food or clothing, by blasting away our personalities, and keeping us in constant fear. Unless we are properly prepared, the powers of darkness will have good reason to catch us unaware and trample our lives. So on this part, so yung sentence na our faith has been shaken many times and now it is put to question. Our faith is a living thing and it can be crippled or chained. So that time, again, sa background ni Carlos Bulosan, it was said that he experienced brutality. So yun yung nararanasan ng mga tao that time. They are experiencing brutality from Americans. So lagi silang tinatakot, lagi silang discriminate, lagi sila the personalities are being judged. They've been receiving a lot of um unpleasant words from Americans. So they had been treated badly by Americans that time. So by that fact, Filipinos and other immigrants doesn't have or didn't have an access to a good life that time. So even though they are in a country which is economically progressive, yung pamumuhay nila doon is not really that progressive because they are treated like a slave that time. So to continue, the the totalitarian nations hate democracy. They hate us because we ask for a definite guarantee of freedom of religion, freedom of expression, and freedom from fear and want. Our challenge to tyranny is the death of our faith in democracy worth defending. Although they spread lies about us, the way of life we cherish is not dead. The American dream is only hidden away and it will push its way up and grow again. We have moved down the years steadily toward the practice of democracy. We become animate in the growth of Kansas wheat or in the ring of Mississippi rain. We tremble in the strong winds of the Great Lakes. We cut timbers in Oregon just as the wildflowers blossom in Maine. We are multitudes in Pennsylvania mines, in Alaskan canneries. We are millions from Puget Sound to Florida. And violent factories, crowded tenements, teeming cities, our numbers increase as the war revolves into years and increases hunger, disease, death, and fear. So the only meaning of this is as the longer that they have the agony and the difficulty, the longer they experience this hardship, ganun sila tumitibay at dumadami rin yung gustong magkaroon ng democracy that time. So the longer they have the pain, the hardship, ganun yung tumitibay din yung paglaban nila towards democracy. Because that time, the nation of America is what we call totalitarian. So yung pag sinabi nating totalitarian, only the native people on the country will have a good life. Totalitarian. So um, that's why they yung mga immigrants or yung other races living in America that time is being separated. They are also separatists, okay? So sineseparate nila yung mga taong hindi nila kalahi. Okay, so that time Americans are totalitarians. Okay, so they hate democracy. They hate to give equal treatment to other races. So ganun sila ka-selfish that time. Pero as these other races, these foreign races, stayed in agony and in pain, ganun sila lalo ka-determinadong push pataas yung democracy. So, but sometimes, we wonder if we are really a part of America. We recognize the mainsprings of American democracy in our right to form unions and bargain through them collectively. Our opportunity to sell our products at reasonable prices, and the privilege of our children to attend schools where they learn the truth about the world in which they live. We also recognize the forces which have been trying to falsify American history, the forces which drive away many Americans to a corner of compromise with those who would distort the ideas of men that died for freedom. So they are bargaining. Other races like Filipinos are bargaining for the equal treatment of them sa mga Americans that time. So they bargain, they are negotiating, they are now pushing their products to have a reasonable prices. So they are now pushing good education for their children even though they are not Americans. Even though there are distortions or distortions in history, ibig sabihin nun ay binabago natin yung history. So, you are not giving the right story, the right details on your history. You are changing it. So, that is the distortion of history. So, according to Carlos Bulosan, there is distortion of history in America that time. So, hindi nila sinasama yung mga ideals of men who died for freedom. So those who died for freedom, their ideals, their what they call this, their beliefs, yung mga pinaglalaban nila, their advocacies, hindi nila ay sinasama on their history. It's because they are not Americans. Okay. Sometimes we walk across the land looking for something to hold on to. We cannot believe that the resources of this country are exhausted. Even when we see our children suffer humiliations, we cannot believe that America has no more place for us. We realize that what is wrong is not in our system of government, but in the ideals of men who died for freedom. We know that we know identify ourselves with a living tradition if we walk proudly in familiar streets. It is a great honor to walk on the American earth. So, okay. If you want to know what we are, look at the men reading books, searching in the dark pages of history for the lost world, the key to the mystery of the living peace. We are factory hands, field hands, mill hands, searching, building, and molding structures. We are doctors, scientists, chemists, discovering and eliminating disease, hunger, and antagonism. We are soldiers, Navy men, citizens, guarding the imperishable dreams of our fathers to live in freedom. We are the living dream of dead men. We are the living spirit of free men. So, according to this, what we have right now on our current time, ngayong panahon na to, exactly our time, we already have the freedom in America. So, if you will observe, in America, even in movies, hindi na lang white Americans ang makikita nyo. You can see multiple races acting in movies, singing international songs. It's because they already have equal treatment in America and democracies there. Right now, America is a democratic country like the Philippines. Okay? So, what we have right now is said to be the dream, the living dream of the dead men. Okay? So, yung mga lumaban for the democracy in America before that time, noong 1943, ang pangarap nila is kung anong meron tayo ngayon, which is democracy. So what we have right now again is the living dream of the dead men. Okay, everywhere we are on the march, passing through darkness into a sphere of economic peace, when we have the freedom to think and discuss things without fear, when peace and security are assured, when the futures of our children are ensured, then we have resurrected and cultivated the early beginnings of democracy. And America lives and becomes a growing part of our aspirations again. We have been marching for the last 150 years. We sacrifice our individual liberties, and sometimes we fail and suffer. Sometimes we divide into separate groups and our methods conflict, though we all aim at one common goal. The significant thing is that we march on without turning back. What we want is peace, not violence. We know that we thrive and prosper only in peace. So imagine what we have right now, yung power natin to voice out in social media and other platforms. It is rarely done by Filipinos in America that time. During the 1940s, hirap na hirap silang i-voice out yung mga saloobin nila or opinions about the government. Pero right now, even tayo, we can easily voice out our opinions using using our social media accounts. So, imagine pinaglalaban lang noon ng mga tao, ngayon we easily have access to it. So again, that is the living dream of dead men. So we are bleeding where clubs are smashing heads, where bayonets are gleaming. We are fighting where the bullet is crashing upon armorless citizens, where there are tear gases choking unprotected children under the lynch trees amidst hysterical mobs, where the prisoner is beaten to confess a crime he did not commit, where the honest man is hanged because he told the truth. So that is the situation of Filipinos in America that time. Again, there are prisoner who is beaten to confess a crime he did not commit, and there are honest man who is hanged because he told the truth. Imagine how ironic is that. You tell the truth, you will be hanged. Pipilitin ka umamin ng kasalanan hindi mo ginawa. So that is the discrimination that Filipinos are experiencing that time by Americans. Okay? So, we are the sufferers who suffer for natural love of man for another man, who commemorate the humanities of every man. We are the creators of abundance. So, according to this, Filipinos really wants to be accepted in America that time. So they are the sufferers. Filipinos are the sufferers who suffer for natural love of man for another man. So that time Filipinos simply wants to be accepted, simply wants to be equally treated that time. So that is their that is what they are fighting that time. So moving on. So we are the desires of anonymous men, we are the subways of suffering, the well of indignities, we are the living testament of a flowering race. But our march to freedom is not complete unless want is annihilated. The America we hope to see is not merely a physical but also a spiritual and intellectual world. We are the mirror of what America is. If America wants us to be living and free, then we must be living and free. If we fail, then America fails. What do we want? We want complete security and peace. We want to share the promise and fruits of American life. We want to be free from fear and hunger. If you want to know what we are marching. Okay, so that is the end of the essay. Okay, so simply they just want to be equally treated. And elaborate lang ni Carlos Bulosan dito sa essay na to kung ano ba yung total experience nila, yung total hardships nila that time. Again, Carlos Bulosan wrote this essay while he was suffering from a lung disease. So imagine having you are sick, you are having a hard time, then you wrote this. So they really had a hard time in America. So we are very blessed and we are very lucky to have democracy right now on our time. So imagine if you will live on that era, 1940s, where other races are slaves in America. So it's really hard. Okay, so we still have 15 minutes. So um, I will look on your interpretations on the activity number 3. So right now, etong bonsai, it is really short. So I will just explain this to you briefly. Okay, so bonsai by Edith Tiempo. All that I love, I fold over once. Again, all that I love, I fold over once. And once again, and keep in a box. Or a slit in a hollow post or in my shoe. All that I love, why, yes, but for the moment and for all time both. Something that folds and keeps easy, son's note or dad's one gaudy tie. I wrote a picture of a young queen, a blue Indian shawl, even a money bill. Its utter sublimation, a feat this heart's control, moment to moment, to scale all love down to a cup hand size. Till seashells are broken pieces from God's own bright teeth, all life and love are real, things you can run and breathless hand over to the merest child. So that is Bonsai. So, it is a short poem by Edith Tiempo. So, ito yung interpretation nun. So, yung bonsai is about a mother's love that is being transferred or being handed to his or to her children or to a child. Okay, so the poem Bonsai by Edith Tiempo is basically a poem talking about love. Okay, so it always talk about love. So at first, um, it will be hard on understanding the poem as it is, but as one reads this poem further, the more one would understand what this poem or what the poet is trying to convey to its readers. This poem talks about how one could have the ability to seize such a huge thought and compact them down to something small to be able to hand them over to one person to another. This poem is about the love of a mother, and this love is now being passed on or being handed over to her daughter. Okay, so imagine your mother. Your mother, marami siyang dinadala. Marami siyang responsibility. The life of your father, your life, and the life of your siblings. So imagine kung gaano kalaki yung responsibility niya. And all of his experiences, out of that experiences, um, isa lang yung lagi niyang binibigay to his or to her offspring or children. You always feel loved by your mother, and yun yung lagi niyang ibinibigay sa inyo. Even though you gave them disappointment sometimes, you made them angry, you made them annoyed most of the time, even though you gave them this challenges as a mother, isa lang yung ibabalik nila sa inyo, which is a hand size full of love. Okay? So again, ang theme nitong um, poem na to is a love of a mother and now being handed over to her daughter. Okay? So, one of the literary images that was shown here in the poem was the stanza, all that I love, why yes, but for the moment, all for all time, both. So, kung babasahin mo siya, it is really hard to understand. But the real meaning of this stanza is, your mother always loves you. Okay? Pero, there are times that your mother are being disappointed. Pero, that time, um, hindi nababawasan yung pagmamahal ng nanay mo. There are times that for the moment, they can feel angry at you, they can feel angry at what you did, pero at the end of the day, they will always give love to her. She will always give love to her children. Okay? So, there are moments that mafe-feel mo na, ay, galit si mama. Naiinis si mama sa akin. Pero that doesn't mean that her love for you will stop. Okay? So, that is the meaning of this stanza. All that I love, why yes, but for the moment and for all time, both. Okay? Even though naiinis si nanay mo sa'yo, mahal ka pa rin niya. Okay? So, that is the meaning of this stanza. So, this stanza is an example of oxymoron. Okay? Oxymoron is, again, a figure of speech which is defined in the dictionary as a figure of speech in which apparently contradictory terms appear in conjunction. Okay? So, pag sinabi natin yung oxymoron, it is phrases that are contradictory to each other. So in this part, the poet is telling its reader that love can only be for a moment or temporary because hatred could come which could destroy love, and at the same time, love can also be forever or eternal. Okay, so another literary image that was shown here in the poem was to a cup hand's size. So this part of the poem is telling its readers that love is something that could be given and received. This shows how the author thinks that love is something that we ask for and also what we give away. This being said, this stanza also shows that love can also be reduced into something small, or in other words, a cup hand size that could be handed over to everyone. Okay, so there are people who can give love that is overwhelming. So according to Edith Tiempo, the right amount of love that an individual can contain is the hand size, a cup hand size. Okay, that is the normal size of love now, because someone might give you an overwhelming love. So, um, paano ba natin masasabing overwhelming ang love ng isang tao? If he cares too much about you, if he interferes on your decisions, on your opinions, on your beliefs. So, may mga taong ganun. But, if you want to love somebody, dapat, sabi ni Edith Tiempo, it must be a cup hand size lang, which is the right amount of love that you can give to others. Okay, so one could be wondering or asking himself why the author used bonsai as its title when bonsai is just defined as an ornamental tree or shrub grown in a pot and artificially prevented from reaching its normal size in the dictionary. Okay, so bakit daw ginamit ni Edith Tiempo yung bonsai na word as the title of the poem? So, alam natin lahat na bonsai is a plant na you are agriculture students, right? So you know this, na yung bonsai plants are plants na nilimitahan yung paglaki. Okay? So, the poem was entitled Bonsai because one's loves just as something that could be kept much like a bonsai. Okay? So, for example, binigyan kita ng puno ng mangga. So, kaya mo bang iuwi yun? Di ba hindi? So, that is the same with overwhelming love. Yung too much love, sabi nga nila, too much love can kill you. So, dapat, saktong amount lang. That's why bonsai yung ginawa niyang title, that is just a representation of the amount of love that an individual can give to a person. Okay? So, bonsai is just a representation. So, for example, if it exists, I don't know, binigyan kita ng bonsai ng puno ng mangga. So, that plant, you can have it at home. Kaya mo siyang iuwi, kaya mo siyang dalhin pauwi sa bahay nyo. So that is the same with the love, the right amount of love that someone can give to you. Okay, so last part. This poem, Bonsai, is about how love is simplified and reduced so that one can give it out to others. Since this love is now compacted or shrunk down to something small that can be given, it is much like a bonsai, which is a simplified version of a huge and enormous tree that could be given away and handed over to others. Thus, this love is now being passed down to generations. Okay, so that is bonsai. Okay, so